And welcome to Let 'em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and we got another great show for you in store. Returning as our guest is Vox. Welcome, Vox, to the show. And we're going to be talking about and analyzing this Ebola epidemic scare that's going on around the world right now. And we know that thousands have died in Africa, and we've seen the horrific pictures of the dead laying sometimes in the streets and the fear that people have had in their own communities. And we've seen that spread to this country, unusually. I mean, usually, but it's the Ebola in the United States has become a gigantic point of hysteria. At the same time, very little is known about it, and it's the reasons to be fearful of it seem to be way overblown as far as its threat in the United States, as far as its threat to people in developed countries. There have been one or two cases from Africa, but we've seen cases where schools have closed in remote parts of the country that have nothing to do with any place that's near any airport where anybody from Africa has ever come in. We have people who have been tarred and feathered, basically, because they happen to have been in Africa, or somebody said they were in Africa and they really weren't, and they had no idea that this had happened. And this kind of hysteria that's sort of sweeping, as usual, the United States, not the world. But it's a hysteria the United States seems to
imbibe on it.
On hysteria. You would think that because our people are the most important people in the world and our lives are the most valuable of all, then therefore every threat in the world must be measured against the possibility that one of the 350 million Americans out there might get a whiff of this problem.
Right. I think that this whipping up of all this fear, this imbibing on fear that we do here in the United States since 9/11 and everything, and all of this preparation and all of this school closures, it's not because they care about our safety. They don't. In fact, they speak openly that they want an 80% population reduction. So
who says that?
Well, this is a part of this long eugenic the Rockefeller ruling class.
Tell me some details about
that. I don't know the exact details on who wanted. I wrote about it years ago about how they had spoken about the need for an 80% reduction in the numbers of people.
And what period of history was this in American history?
This was just during the Bush II. There had been still some mention about that the 80% population reduction would be a good idea. But this fear stuff, in order to understand this Ebola, you have to understand things like ISIS, Ebola, terrorism. You have to understand it in the context.
You call it Ebola, not Ebola.
Ebola. You have to understand it in the context of what's going on in the world. You have the collapse of the American economy. You have the general overall decline of American power vis-a-vis in relation to, say, China, Russia, other nations as they go. Okay, so this is the context which all these things are occurring. Another part of the context here is that, as soon as you take a nation like Liberia or Sierra Leone that has, gold, bauxite, rutile, a lot of major minerals that are needed for industrial nations, right? As soon as they start doing deals with China, right? Then all of a sudden they have an Ebola breakout. And it's the same as soon as Saddam Hussein decides to try to dump the dollar, he's dead. As soon as Muammar Gaddafi talks about getting off the petrodollar and shifting to a new currency that's an Afrocentric currency, he's gone. And so what happens is the world is trying to do things like they're sick and tired of these fascists. It's unreliable to deal with a fascist, right? Okay. So they're trying to dump the dollars, right? And they're no longer wanting to trade energy in the petrodollar, right? Well, unfortunately, once these things start occurring, once we screw up, and that's why everybody's dumping the dollar. If we dealt fairly with people, they wouldn't have a need, right? So now we confront Russia with a fake crisis in Ukraine. We promoted that. We started that. We're blaming it on him, and then the response is he wins that game by having the people in Crimea vote unanimously to become Russian now. So now we started that conflict to deny Russia a warm water port for the Navy, and now Putin finishes the conflict, and they now permanently have a warm water port, Russia, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we're screwing up, the U.S. intelligence establishment is screwing up the future of America. They're screwing us permanently, right? But it doesn't matter, because it's a short-term thing. So they only care about the profits, short-term profits of Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, Carlisle.
The defense
industry is what it is, and
right.
to a lesser.
And this new generation that rose up in the early 21st century of these mercenary type, or like you meant,
companies,
Carlisle,
lethal
and
companies,
Halliburton, and some of these companies that are really almost more like providing services as far as repurposing retired U.S. military personnel as mercenaries in other countries.
Right. Now, another thing that's going on is that we're seeing a complete diminishment of all of our former rights, and a complete clampdown, and it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the ruling establishment and their servants, the intelligence networks, and to a large degree now privatized intelligence networks, because it's not actually a CIA agent, it's not actually a direct CIA agent working directly for the agency who's taking test tubes full of Ebola and spreading it, or taking a plane and dumping it on
So
population.
is that what we're getting at?
They subcontract it out.
You're saying that this
Ebola is spread by the intelligence networks. Definitely.
You're not the first person who said that to me. A Russian doctor I was speaking to the other day said that's what he believed was happening. And I asked him why he thought so, and he told me somebody wants to cause trouble.
Well, that's not, but that's a little bit simplistic.
It doesn't have to have a reason.
No, there is a reason. The minerals, they have, the people in Sierra Leone are sitting on top of, all those people are sitting on top of these massive.
Well, we've had these, AIDS, it was said, was being spread in the black
community. To
community.
kill blacks and gays.
Right.
Yes.
So, but what's the evidence of this, and what is it beyond the wishful thinking of people who are angry with the government?
The evidence is we have a long series of very incriminating sequences that occurred where they were giving the gay population, specifically ones that were promiscuous gay people, they took an ad out in the Village Voice, a very dodgy National Institute of Health program, and the NIH will get to National
Institutes of Health.
Yeah, that's a scary, scary, scary organization, that one. But they took out ads in the Village Voice saying, we want promiscuous gay men to participate in a hepatitis B vaccine program, and that's how they slipped it in. And something like over 90% of all the men who participated in that program eventually ended up dying of AIDS.
So you say this Ebola is a repeat of that, of what you claim is the...
It's the methodology of it's a different kind of thing. Back then, they wanted to get rid of gays and test.
Didn't work. Backfired, didn't it?
Well, and
gays are in the military. Gays are at all levels of government.
Yeah, but
gay marriage is
in the
spreading.
end, they made the money in their pharmaceuticals. So it starts off as this idea to kill off populations, and then when that doesn't work, okay, well, we'll have to just take the hundreds of billions of dollars for our pharmaceutical. So either way, if it works, they get to kill the blacks and gays. If it doesn't work, they get billions.
Who's the target of Ebola then? In your opinion, this is your story. I mean, I'm not signing on. I'm letting you speak about this. What is?
I'll tell you the target of the entire planet Earth, mostly to totally destroy these nations. And for the American people, here's the big one. Okay, because get ready for it. It's going to be, the ruling establishment has a lot of. They will stop at nothing to complete their toolkit of control, right? So one of the things that has been missing from the toolkit of total control has been quarantines and curfews, right? Mm-hmm. So now, welcome to the new world in America, where you will be able to get on a bus, to go through a subway station. If you think that the procedures at the TSA are onerous and a little bit excessive, right? Guess this is coming to a bus depot near you. This is coming to it's a more invasive way, and the ruling class needs this, because what will happen is, once if it ever occurs, which I'm not sure it's ever going to occur, because we have no fighting spirit left. America is really beaten. The people are beaten, so they're very weak, and they can only deal, like liberals will only deal with social issues, gender issues, or environmental issues. But if it comes to something like freedom or fighting for democracy or fighting corruption, if it's not a gender issue, a liberal doesn't understand it and cannot do anything about it, right? So the liberal class has relegated all talks about freedom and fighting government corruption to the Tea Party, who's the only entity in America who is standing up against that. So that's sick. So what'll happen?
You're not supporting the Tea Party.
No, not at all. But here's the thing. But although when it comes to their position against the government, I have much more in common with the Tea Party. Just their social issues, I don't support.
What is their position on the government?
They hate the government.
Why do you hate the government so much? I mean, you're privileged.
Because it's a fascist. I'm not privileged.
Okay,
they're doing everything they can to stop me.
Okay.
Right? And I've already had my house raided by the FBI and the Secret Service back in December. Friday, December 13th, 2002. Major raid.
What was that about?
Oh, I was publishing information about the Bush family's connection to the Bin Laden family, and they made up a pretext to raid multiple locations. But we could talk about that a little later. I don't want to talk about that right now.
Well, that's what seems to be. So you've been analyzing this stuff for a while, Vox.
Long time. I've been doing this.
And where can people hear more about your stuff and follow this?
VOXNEWS. Vox News is where you can go to get interviews. The show that we have here, I put it on there. Radio stuff and articles that are writing, and now we're going to include animation, comedy, more complete to get people.
What's the goal of all your work? What would you like to have?
Just to wake people up so that they can have. So I'd like to live in a place. I don't like to live in a fascist country, and this is now the dictionary definition of fascism. So people have enough food right now to eat. Soon the price of food with relation to their overall income and the price of rent is going to get so much that people will start getting a little bit angry, and then maybe there might be some more organized resistance. But let me say, if the ruling class ever saw wide-scale civil unrest, you'd see an Ebola outbreak in America right away.
Okay, so this is what you see is that Ebola is
another tool in the toolbox of the ruling class to control. Yeah,
to keep down
absolutely,
repression.
positively, 100%. This is a tool.
Right.
Ebola doesn't just magically start spreading, and then we have this doctors that come back here. The white people, of course, live. The two whites who got it survived. All the black people that get it die. The white. And then this one doctor is associated with this Christian charity over there. That's Billy Graham's son, the main doctor who came back here, the young guy. And it's very possible that these one of these NGOs over there is going around with a veil of Ebola or spreading it from a small plane onto villages. The point is to get hundreds of thousands of people infected with it and create the next phase of control. Now, one of the things I'd like to show to back up my claims here, here's a document from the Rockefeller Foundation. Rockefeller Foundation right there. You can zoom in on that where my finger is. It's called Scenarios for the Future of Development and International Development, the Rockefeller Foundation. All right? Okay, let's take a look at what they're saying here. This is something like a 50, 60-page document. I'd like you to go to page 18, if you can look at this up on the internet, but I'll read it off to you. It's called Lockstep. Lockstep. And this is a phrase that I used right after 2001 when I saw the entire system of the United States, including the population, were in lockstep. So the Congress went along, and yes, it was Osama bin Laden, and the people waved their flag and said, I hate, 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 and everything was in lockstep. Well, in 2010, they published this, Rockefeller Foundation, and here's what they're saying. They're saying that they call it a scenario. These are scenario narratives, and they speak about it in the past tense. So they put out this scenario, lockstep. A world of tighter, top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. Okay, I'll read a little bit of it. In 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years, nobody was anticipating a pandemic, finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain originating from wild geese. They use some scenario, but this is Ebola they're talking about.
Ahead.
Even the most pandemic-prepared nations were quickly overwhelmed when the virus streaked around the world, infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months. The majority of them healthy young adults. The pandemic also had a deadly effect on economies. You can see the agenda. Just naked, raw, naked control agenda written down, and it's anybody's guess how this becomes effectuated in real life. So whether this is written specifically as marching orders or whether people take it upon themselves in the intelligence networks to say, okay, well, this has been produced, so this is the plan here. But these narratives have to be written in advance because the intelligence agencies don't know how to do these narratives. They need help. So these think tanks, they come up with these like Rand Corporation, Rockefeller Foundation. These are think tanks of death. They're not there to find great ways to help people. Right? Okay, the pandemic also had a deadly effect on economics. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt. Right? Which is what they want. They want a completely isolated world, right? Debilitating industries like tourism and breaking global supply chains. Well, of course they want tourism. They want you stopped because they're not in the tourism business, and they want you at home in your house in front of the TV. Then they got you because once you watch the TV, they own your soul. Even locally.
Wait a second, we're on television, aren't we?
That's right.
I checked. We're on television.
Well, this is, but
it's a special show.
This is different. Yeah, this is not. I mean commercial television. Let's say, national. Even locally, normally bustling shops and offices sat empty for months. Okay, so I love how they talk about it in the past tense in 2010. Right? The pandemic blanketed the planet, though disproportionate numbers in Africa died. Southeast Asia and Central America, where the virus spread like wildfire.
It sounds like the opening monologue of a disaster movie, right?
Exactly.
Over the opening credits as they show the disaster.
Sure. And they made it real.
They have something like this, a narration like this over the credits that sets you up.
Now listen to, here's the good stuff now. But even in developed countries, containment was a challenge. Now here's this one. I love this one. The United States' initial policy of strongly discouraging, in quotation marks, strongly discouraging citizens from flying proved deadly in its leniency. So they're saying, that...
No, keep going.
Okay,
read it.
Proved deadly in its leniency. So they should have been tougher, right? Accelerating the spread of the virus, not just within the United States, but across borders. However, a few countries did fare better. China in particular. The Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, as well as its instant and near hermetic sealing off of all borders, saved millions of lives, stopping the spread of virus far earlier than in other countries. So the message is here is we have to look towards the Chinese, the oppressive totalitarian Chinese regime as an example of what we need to be doing here. And of course, the ruling class here loves the Chinese regime because they have demonstrated to the ruling class the most efficient form of capitalism, which is authoritarian capitalism. So we have capitalism, but unfortunately we have this veil.
I get it.
We have this veil of democracy.
This is very interesting. This is continue on.
Okay. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their muscles, flexed their authority, and imposed airtight rules and restrictions. You can see the agenda.
Okay, go.
Okay. From the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like
that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, but soon it's going to be like body.
It'll be at the subway.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying? We'll be going through this in the sub to get on buses and the subway, things like that.
And what this means though is don't think about having a cigarette, a joint on you, or basically you can't. This is a dragnet for everything. So if in order for you
in other words, just like with stop and frisk, this is ultimate stop and frisk.
this is the ultimate cavity stop and frisk, cavity search kind of thing. All right, so during the pandemic, national leaders around the world flex their authority. You know, now there's some good stuff. Listen to this. And even supermarkets, they want body checks at supermarkets, okay? So basically what they're saying is they're building a system where every move you make, you got to go through them.
You can't get food. Well, how about if you go to the farmer's market?
Right. Here's the good stuff now. I mean, it just keeps getting better. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. That's the whole point. So they're going to get rid of...
Didn't that happen already with 9/11?
Of course.
9/11 was how many, 14 years ago? And we still have all these draconian
rules. So they're going to put the body cavity
USA
searches
Patriot
in.
And all
That's right. Stuff. So in order to get to a supermarket, you got to have a body cavity search. And then when there's no more Ebola, well, you know what? We kind of like this way because we have an complete infrastructure of a control grid, like my friend down in Austin, Texas, Alex Jones says, control grid. Okay. And yes.
Alex Jones is a controversial figure.
Well, you may not like a lot of what he says, and I think that a lot of his stuff is a little bit, I think the way he delivers it can very much turn people off. However, he is hitting the salient points, let's say. Now, even after the pandemic, in order to protect themselves from the spread of increasingly global problems, from pandemics and national terrorism to environmental crisis and rising poverty, leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. Well, what the hell would rising poverty have anything to do with imposing strict citizen controls with face masks? So they're very sloppy stuff here. At first, the notion of a more controlled world gained wide acceptance and approval. I'm sorry. Nobody likes this stuff. They're just saying it. I have to provide analysis.
Only because we only have 5 minutes left, so that's.
Oh my God! Okay. Citizens willingly gave up some of their sovereignty and their privacy to more paternalistic states in exchange for greater safety and stability. I mean, that's just a complete naked contradiction to the famous saying that if you think you're going to give up a little bit of your security, I mean, if you're going to give up your freedom for security, you're going to get neither. That's the long-standing thing. And here what they're doing is they're not even ashamed or embarrassed to absolutely say the exact opposite. They're saying, yes, we all want to give up our privacy and sovereignty for more stability and security and stability. So you don't get that. When you give it up like that, you get the shaft. That's right. Okay.
We're speaking, by the way, we're speaking with Vox, and Vox from Vox News. He's been on the show a few times, and he's reading some very frightening things that I think are worth listening to. Can you show us the cover again of what you were just reading?
One more time, and then I have two more documents.
Right, this is what we were reading here, and just zoom in a little bit so folks can see it. He'll zoom in. Don't worry, you can relax.
All right.
And scenarios for the future of technology and international development.
Okay. Now I have two more documents. Keep it zoomed. We have the National Security Memorandum of December 10th, 1974. This is Henry Kissinger's brainchild. The National Security Memorandum number 200. You can look that up on your internet. I'll summarize it. He says that there's too many people. We got to get rid of the population. So to answer your question,
from earlier,
he says he used the word depopulation, which is different. Depopulation means killing people that already exist, and it's to get the minerals because we need the minerals. And here's another one. The CDC has a patent on Ebola. They patented it. Yeah? Right. So basically, if you want to get a cure for your Ebola, you got to go.
It says it right up here, right? It says human Ebola virus species and compositions and methods thereof, and it's a patent.
It's a patent. They patented the main strain plus something like 17 other strains of it. So they own it now, and I don't know how exactly you can own that, but apparently they've done the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't think you could own a natural.
Yeah, you can. They
just its use.
Somebody sequenced the genome for Thai jasmine rice. This was a story that's back in Bush 1.
Okay, this is like Frankenfoods.
Yeah,
like
they
Monsanto.
say we own Thai jasmine rice now, and the Thai people who had developed that for 1,000 years said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's similar to what's happening with Monsanto.
Monsanto, it's the same thing. And by the way, Monsanto is involved in all of this because it was all in Atlanta. The company. There's a company name, and I wrote it down here. Yeah.
We're speaking with Vox, by the way, from Vox News. He's a regular on this show, contributor, and he loves to come here and scare the hell out of us, and he's doing a good job of it. And I hope with the season of Halloween approaching, we could all get into the spirit of terror that's being created, and by possibly, according to Vox, our own government. So very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you have for us?
I guess the main thing to finish off this show is this: that they want to get more control, more and it's going to be curfews and quarantines. So what I'm saying is that unless the American people start to get some new way to revolt, a new way to organize, new way to protest, unless we can break through the apathy, because that's what we have here, then it's going to be a slave state here. The ruling class doesn't seem to have too much resistance. They're getting everything on their Christmas shopping list, and they've been wanting quarantines and curfews for a long time. Now they got it. And if you want to live in a world where you're tricked into all this stuff because it's for your safety, right? And if you want to have a probe and make sure you got to check your pockets, make sure you don't have anything incriminating on you before you go out, and when you step out of your house, you want some police there to monitor and see what you're doing. If that's the world you want to live in, be apathetic, don't do anything. You're going to get that world very soon. It's coming your way, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a minute and a half, Fox. How do you want to sum up this message? What's the message you're giving to people, and what's the hope? Is there a hope there?
I would think that I would like to see something where people have to do 10 protest things a year, participate in some sort of, that the people have to start to basically, in the 60s, and people would protest, young people. Now it's another tattoo, another hair dye. It's nonsense. I love tattoos, but if it's just, okay, I got a tattoo now I'm getting another tattoo. It's a tattoo after a tattoo. You actually have to do something to stand up and be a dignified person, and tattoos ain't going to do it. You have to defend your world.
So just being a hipster isn't enough.
No, being a hipster trash is boring. And when somebody says, "Hey, I'm getting another tattoo," yawn. I've only seen 10 trillion tattoos. It's
personal rebellion.
It's the Walmartization. Right. Getting a tattoo is exciting as going to Walmart.
So what should people do? What's the hope? You have 30 seconds.
To wake up, learn about it, and go fight these bastards in Washington. They're easy to beat. If we can just organize, we can beat them. It's simple. They're weak, and there's so few of them.
Are there any organizations that you see that are doing this?
Well, it's hard to tell because the most Vox News is out there every day.
All right, Vox News.
VOXNEWS.
And we'll see you next week. Welcome to Let Them Talk, and we'll see you again next week.